Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Video Games back with another really cool arcade game video for you. Today we have a pinball machine actually. This is Williams' 1977 hot tip pinball machine. Very strange name, but I think it's a horse racing game. So I believe the purpose of that is you have a hot tip on a horse that's going to win. We'd have to ask the designers to know for sure, but that's what they called it. This is a really interesting piece of history here. This is the first game that Williams ever made. You know, Williams was a very famous pinball design company, manufacturer. And this is the absolute first production game they made that was solid state. So as you know, they originally had games that were electromechanical. So we've got one right here. This is a Williams Spanish Eyes, one player old electromechanical game. And this is a Williams Pat Hand, old school electromechanical game. And so up until 1977, all of the pinball games had these type of score reels. Everything in them operated electromechanically. So you had little coils that made relays shut, and you had a bunch of little switches that made things work, and you had little motors that turned and stuff. If you've never looked inside of an electromechanical pinball machine, not sure how much we can see. Can't see anything. Well, let's see. We'll try looking inside this little Spanish Eyes over here. Bam! Check out all that. Lots of goodies. Lots of relays, wires, switches everywhere, right? They got rid of all of that with the solid state games. So basically these were computer controlled. This was the first one that they actually pulled off to a point that they thought they could go into production with it. And so they did. So this is a neat game. It's fun too. Ironically, we've got a 77 Bally there behind it, so they were fighting for market share at the time, and I believe Bally beat them out with the game. So the 8-ball, I believe, came out before this one. This one came out in November 1977, which was pretty late. Bally, I believe, had several production games already out by then, but Williams, had to make their own system. They couldn't just copy Bally like Stern did, so they had to come up with their own board set that was reliable, that they felt they could put out in production and not have a bunch of problems with, because the last thing you want to do is make a new type of game and then put them out on location, and then they start breaking or things fail on it. So they had to make sure they got it right, and apparently it took them till November of '77 to get it right. But of course, the difference between a solid state game, the easiest way to recognize it is in the scoring. You can see the displays are digital. And the first, I don't know if it was just the first few or what, but the Williams games, all of the lights are lit at all times. So if your score is, do I have that right? I think I've got that right. I think even if your score is like 100, it says 100 and then it has the other zeros, but I'm not positive about that. We'll see here in a minute. But they couldn't just put a score of 0 up. They put up a score of 6 zeros. We'll check that out here in a minute, though, just to make sure I'm right about that. Something you don't pay attention to too much. And so it's a cool little game, little horse racing game. As you know, pinball machines have a long history of being associated with gambling, and horse racing is one of the absolute best ways to gamble, actually. So it's got cool stenciled side art. I guess that's the saddle. That's the little helmet that they wear. And then that's the little flail or whatever that they hit the horse with. Don't feel bad for the horses, people. They can barely feel it. They can barely feel it. This thing's weigh about 2 tons. And the play field was, just a simple little layout, similar to their EM games. It has a little saucer at the top. Has really cool art, though. I think the art's pretty awesome on this. It had 6 drop targets. Hot tip. Pop bumper in the middle, had a little spinner, so it kind of had everything. It had a captive ball, they call it. That ball sits there, and if you hit it just right, ow, it kind of hurt. If you hit it just right, the ball would go up, hit that switch, and then hit the little target up at the top. Of course, if you smacked it with the ball, it would go a lot faster. But there you go. Had this kind of neat little red-white ladder here in the middle. Blah, blah, blah. So let's look at some of the artwork, because the artwork, in my opinion, is fairly extraordinary. First of all, it has this kind of yellowish orange paint all over it. That's awesome. It's almost kind of neon looking. And the hot tip, you may not be able to tell on the video, but it's kind of an orange, and it's a really bright orange, like again, almost like a neon. And up here it says, play flipper skill games for fun and recreation. It's more fun to compete. Invite competition. So the reason they put that is because the top on the play flipper skill games for fun and recreation, not gambling. It was illegal for them to be gambling devices in a lot of locations. So the reason they put that right on it was to say, oh, this isn't a gambling device. Look, it's a skill game for fun and recreation. The reason it says skill game is because it was illegal in some places to have a machine that had no skill. If you couldn't get, if it was just up to chance, it was considered gambling. You know, if you're going to gamble on, you turn over a card, you're going to play high-low or something. Well, that's not a skill. That's just a chance thing. So, the reason it says skill games is because it differentiates between if it's a legal game or an illegal game. So they were, certain to put that on there. It's more fun to compete, invite competition is because 4 people could play at the same time. Which meant that they made twice as much money. And if you get into a competition with somebody where you're at a bar or whatever and you're playing it and trying to see who can get the best score, well, you might pop another 50 cents in and play again. That's another interesting thing too. When this game came out, it was set up as 2 plays for a quarter. So they hadn't even got to 25 cents yet on some of these. They wanted to give you 2 plays for a quarter. Pretty interesting. Hot tip, SS stands for solid state because they also made an electromechanical version, just one of the old style versions, because this ultimately had nothing in it that you couldn't do on an electromechanical machine. Copyright 1977, Williams Electronics Incorporated. So looking at the art again, you kind of got this cityscape behind it. Now you got to think, they paid someone to design this back glass and then to actually paint it, and then they had to separate out all the colors and everything to make it where they could silkscreen it. So this is really a heck of a piece of art, really, if you think about it. And whenever they silkscreen things, what's important about that a lot of times is the number of colors. And they just put tons of different colors on this thing when they really didn't have to. They could have made it simpler where it only had 8 or 9 colors, but they just went all out. So the thing's got a lot going on if you're interested in that kind of thing. Again, this is from 1977. I'm filming this in 2015, so it's almost 40 years old. It's still in pretty good shape. Some of it's starting to flake a little bit, but it's pretty good. So you've got the cityscape, and then behind the city you've got just these little shadows of buildings. So if you look at that, you've got one color here, and then you've got a color here, which is like a darker shade of that, basically. And then you've got a little outline color. Well, we're up to 3 colors already. You've got another color here on the side of the building. That's not the same orange as that. So that's the 4th color. And then you've got black, which is the 5th color. And then over here, you've got the hot tip text is a 6th color. And they're starting to add up. So you've got these little horseshoes that denote who's up, first up, second up, third up, 4th up, right? And so, where were we at? 5 or 6 colors. So then you've got the bushes, which are 2 different colors, so that they have a shadow to them. So that's 8. And then you've got, check out all of the little detail. You've got this little horse with a jockey on the back who's jumping over the rail, right? And then you've got this one next to him who's already jumped over the rail, and the guy's fallen off the horse, his cap's popped off. And of course what they're showing is the rail on a horse racing track. And so then you've got this guy and his horse is going the wrong way. He looks completely confused. And you've got this guy saying, man, what are you doing? You're going the wrong way. What's going on? Then you've got this guy up here. He's looking at all the commotion, trying to figure out what's going on. Right. And then you've got this guy in front of him. He's also looking back, trying to figure out what's going on. And then as it continues around, this horse, the jockey's already jumped off or got bucked off, and he's trying to catch his horse. And then this jockey's looking back at the horse, trying to figure out what's going on. Right. And then you come up here, and you've got this guy's a little closer, and he cannot believe what he sees. And his horse is like kind of staring straight at you. And you've got little things down here to kind of show that it's sand that they're running on, or dirt. And then you've got this horse here running along, and you can even see, I don't know if that's if that's like the foam coming out of his mouth or what that is. And you see his jockey's kind of ducking and can't believe what's going on, kind of worried. Very well drawn. I'm not an expert on horse anatomy, but that looks like they did a really good job to me. And then over here, you've got this horse, and as you can see, he's fighting the other horse. The other horse has bit him on the leg. You can see that this horse's feet are taped, his legs are taped up. I mean, just incredible attention to detail, in my opinion. And then these two jockeys are both fighting each other. So this one's got his hand in this guy's face, and this guy's pulled the other one's cap down over his face. Just really, the attention to detail is amazing. And so here's one of the, so we got the girls, right? So the girls are hanging out. This chick's trying to move back away from it, I guess, because the horses are fighting. And you've got the girl here with the binoculars. She's checking out what's going on. And then you've got the girl here, she's waving. Classic pinball art. And then you notice that the guys that are fighting aren't even winning. There's a guy over here that's ahead of them. So if you the horses that have jumped the fence, if you look, they're running towards the girls. And the guy over here that's looking at what's going on, if you look, he's not looking at the guys fighting, he's checking out the girls. There's just a lot of just cool attention to detail. In my opinion, a really nice back glass, tons of color. We didn't even count all of them, but there's a lot more colors in it too, as you can see. Now, a thing about the horses fighting. So you got the two guys fighting, and the horses are fighting. That's actually from an old, look it up online, it's a painting that Da Vinci did, the Battle of something, I can't remember the name of it, but it's this incredible painting that he made that hung on a wall as a fresco or whatever, a huge mural of a battle, a famous battle. And in the battle, it shows the men riding horses. They're all fighting each other, and the men are, you know, trying to hit each other with swords and everything, and they're fighting to the death. And the horses are fighting each other too, just like this. One of the horses is biting the other horse, and so I'm sure whoever drew this back glass obviously was a great artist, and I'm sure he knew all about Leonardo da Vinci, and he stole that neat little idea there of having the horses fight each other too. Cool game, cool back glass in my opinion. But enough of that. Let's read through the instructions and see if it matches the artwork. All right, instructions, because you know these games are always better if you know how to play them. You know, you can just hit the flippers, but if you know what score is what, it makes it a lot better. Instructions: insert coins to increase the credit total as shown on the black glass. It says that's a typo. It should be back glass. These are reproduction cards. Somebody should have caught that. That's just ridiculous. Press credit button to set up 1 to 4 players. Each player shoots 1 ball at a time as indicated on the back glass. They got it right that time. Tilt penalty is the ball in play. Does not disqualify the player. So basically if you tilt the game, you lose your ball, but it doesn't, end your game. Making hot tip drop targets. Lights horseshoe 1, 2, and 3. So, hot tip. If you get all of those, it says target score lit value, target score lit value. So in front of it, it says 100 or 1,000, 100 or 1,000. But if you get those, it lights horseshoes 1, 2, and 3. All right. Making the number 1 horseshoe lights double bonus. Now, did I get that wrong? I don't believe I did. How do you make the number 1 horseshoe? Oh, I guess whenever it lights up, it also lights up double bonus. Okay. Making number 2 horseshoe lights left eject hole for possible extra ball. So there's an eject hole over here, also known as a saucer. It says 500 advanced bonus. So basically, whenever you land in there, you get 500 points, and you advance the bonus, which is at 1,000 right now. So it would move up to 2 or 3 or 4, which you get at the end of the ball. Well, if you've lit horseshoe number 1 by knocking down all of the targets, it lights the double bonus when lit light, so that if you're at 5, whenever it counts down, you would do that twice. If you've lit number 2, it makes it where this saucer, the extra ball when lit light comes on. So if you land in there, you get an extra ball. Pretty cool. That's how you get points. Making number 3 horseshoe lights the bottom out lanes alternately for a possible special. Special score is 1 credit. So over here where it says advanced bonus, the outside lane is the out lane. So you get 1,000 points for rolling over that switch, or you get the special if this is lit. When they say lights alternately, it means either this one will be lit or this one will be lit. And depending on what you hit on the playfield, it'll bounce back and forth, where that'll be lit, and then that one will go off, and now this one's lit, and this one will go off, and now that one's lit, and it goes back and forth. Usually whenever you hit like the pop bumper, or the kickers here. All right, and if you do get the special, it gives you a free game. Beating highest score scores blank credits, usually 1 credit. Matching last 2 numbers of score to match number that appears on back glass after game is over scores 1 credit. So that's the famous match, basically. That's your match number, and if you match your last 2 the last 2 numbers of your score to it, you win a free game. So it's a really cool game. One thing I'm going to show you that's really interesting about this one. This was Williams System 3. Now Williams System 1 was a prototype game they decided not to go into production with. Williams System 2 was a prototype game that they decided not to go into production with. This was Williams System 3. Now they went on to have System 4, System 5, 6, 7, 9, 11 that were all production games, and then on from there. But this was System 3, the first production electronic game. Well, one of the things that they were worried about was they thought that perhaps players that were used to playing the older games like these wouldn't appreciate that the games didn't sound the same. So the old games had chimes in them, but along with the chimes, you don't really perceive it, but they make a clicking noise as you play it as the reels click by. So whenever the score reels clicked, it would go click, 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 depending on what you hit, and then it would also make bells and chimes sound as you scored the points. But that clicking sound, Williams didn't know and were afraid, because they were doing pretty good with their EM games, they were afraid that people would not like the solid state games because they didn't make enough noise, if you can believe that, because they were just using chimes and stuff. So what I'm going to show you is how they overcame that in the bottom of the cabinet. Pretty interesting. All right, so we're back. So this is the Williams System 3 sound setup. Very interesting. This is a buzzer. It just makes a buzzing noise. Not sure even what they do with that. There's certain places where the game activates that and it buzzes a little bit. It's not real loud. You can barely hear it, which I don't think there's a problem with it, but that's what's going on. This is a knocker. So basically, this little coil goes up and hits the top if you win a free game or if you put a credit in. So we'll try putting a credit in. Did you see it? So basically the reason that makes a smack like that, that's an old thing from electromechanical games, and they're in most pinball games, is because it wasn't because they wanted you to hear it, it's because they wanted everybody in the arcade or in the bowling alley or whatever to hear it. Because it meant that you were good enough that you just won a free game. because it does it when you win a free game as well. So, but it, you know, it also does it when you put a quarter in. So, but that sound, it kind of conditioned people to know that sound, the knocker sound, was that somebody had just won a free game. So people would look or notice that, hey, he just won a free game. Boy, that guy's really racking up the free games over there. Boy, isn't he great? All right, and then these are, of course, the famous chimes, and every company had different chimes. So basically, on the System 3 games, they hadn't made digital sound yet. They were still running chimes. And in 1977, so was Bally. So Bally's 8-ball over here also has chimes in it. So it's basically like a xylophone, you know. And some of the games before this had bells and things like that. And I don't know if Williams did that or not, but some of the games would have bells instead of chimes. But what I'll do is I'll start a game and I'll show you this other little thing here. They put a score reel inside the game in the bottom with no numbers on it though. That would click every time you scored points. That would turn around and click. So that you got it would sound exactly like it did with the electromechanical games. You would have the chimes making the chime noises like on the EM games, and you would have a score reel making the clicking noise like on an EM game. Crazy. So we'll start it up, and you can watch the chimes do what they do and see what you think. Man, that never gets old. All right. So watch the score reel here, and I'll just hit a couple switches and you can see it do its thing. So basically this chime's hitting up above it, and it's also turning the reel. We'll try another one, see if we can get a different chime to sound. So that's hitting this one up here and turning the reel. And that was their little trick. They thought that would really help. They thought that you folks would really miss it if that little score reel wasn't in there. Unbelievable. All right, so we'll put it all together, and then we'll film a little video of playing it. All right, folks, we moved some stuff around, and now we're going to film a little video of playing this baby. Like I was talking about, there's no attract mode. Later on, again, remember this was Williams' first solid state game. Later on, even the Williams games, and as a matter of fact, very quickly after this, I think maybe the third or fourth game after this had an attract mode. So all the lights on the Williams usually would just blink. So you'd get stuff blinking constantly. So pretty much every light would just blink on and off the whole time. That's kind of how they did their attract for a while. But this game is so early that there's only two things that are changing. The first up light, you can actually see a reflection of it blinking. The first up light is blinking, and the highest score light is coming on when it shows you the highest score, and then it goes back to the current score. So, very simple programming in this one. It was basically an EM machine. They actually had an electromechanical version of this that came out at the same time. So we'll play it a little bit, and you'll just see it's a pretty plain game, but it's still kind of cool. Got it like that. Now, one thing about this one, that saucer up at the top, bloop, you land in all the time. And on this particular game, I haven't figured out how to adjust it right yet, but basically when it kicks the ball out, it hits the glass every time, which is scary. But the ball, I've never heard of the ball actually breaking the glass before, so. Of course, we missed it the one time I was trying to show you. We'll get it here in a second, though. Oh. And if you listen closely, you'll hear that reel in the bottom. Oh, and it hit the glass. Ah. Oh. Well, that was a horrible game. We'll try another one. Oh, and I hit the glass. Hit the glass again. If I can get a good spinner shot or something. The outlanes are killing me. Extremely low scoring game so far. Boop! Ah! And I don't know what it's trying. That was the match noise. I don't know what it's trying to play at the end. Of course, I know the horse racing song at the beginning, but. I guess that's the William Tell Overture, isn't it? I didn't think about that. Captain Target scores 3,000 when... Oh. I have got to do something about that. All right, so two things I need to adjust is the crack, and then also this light. This happens a lot too. Sometimes the light in the pop bumpers, it'll get a little where it's not really making good contact, so it, you know, it's not staying on as well as it should. Haven't even got all the drop targets yet. My game is off tonight. If you look closely at the spinners, whenever they spin, you'll see that there's a picture on the back of the spinner, and it kind of combines it together like an old flip book, kind of a little trick they used to do on spinners. All right, we'll play. I matched again. We'll play one last game. Another adjustment you can do is see how I keep losing it down the outlane. There's a bumper right there underneath it. You can take that loose, and sometimes there'll be different settings. So you'll have 3 holes, so you can move the bumper down to the next hole, so it makes that gap a little bit shorter, so the ball's more likely to hit the bumper and fall in there. There we go. Got the drop targets all down. Finally. The kickers are pretty decent. got my first horseshoe. That's good. And that's that. I matched again. It's matching a lot. I don't know what setting that is, but it's kind of wild. So there you have it. That is Hot Tip, the first Williams solid state. As you can see, there wasn't a lot of complicated stuff going on. Just a simple game. But like about any pinball game, fun if you get into it. And you know, this one needs a couple little adjustments, but pretty good. So there you have it. By the time you see this video, Hot Tip may have galloped off to another home. But maybe we'll have something else you're interested in buying. We've got a store here with just all kinds of games in it. You can check out all the games that we have for sale right now on our website at lionsarcade.com. Or if you're here local, you can stop by and see us. We're in downtown Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is about 15 minutes south of Charlotte, North Carolina. And we've got a building full of games here like this. Or maybe you're not even looking to buy a pinball machine or an arcade game. Maybe you just like watching these videos, and that is perfectly fine with us. So just subscribe to us here on YouTube, and we'll be filming tons more videos whenever we get in some other equipment. So we will see you on the next video.